inheritance tax relief for farms. Thousands of farmers are descending on London this week to protest the changes. But will it convince the Prime Minister to do a U-turn? And have the police got their priorities wrong when it comes to tackling crime? Kemi Badenoch has called for a review to hate crime laws to protect free speech after police launched an investigation into journalist Alison Pearson over a tweet. And more people are coming out saying that they've also been approached by police for hurty words crimes. That's coming up in the next hour. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Well, it's been revealed this morning that the ministers are plotting a series of Italy-style deals to stop thousands of illegal migrants setting off towards the UK. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is expected to pay millions of pounds to countries such as Turkey and Vietnam in return for cooperation and security agreements. And this comes after more than 400 illegal migrants crossed yesterday, taking the total to more than 33,500. That's quite something in this year. And as ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, because I'd like to hear what you think. Let's have a chat to GBNews' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. OK, Catherine, so this has been reported in the Sunday Times. What are they saying?
Yeah, so the Sunday Times are saying that within weeks there's going to be agreements reached with Vietnam, Turkey and Kurdistan in terms of giving them money, to beef up security and crack down on gangs operating in places like Kurdistan, but also incentives to keep people there. Now, in the case of Vietnam, that's already happening. That was a deal struck by the Tories. A lot of it is basically social media ads there to say to people, look, don't even think about it. It's not worth your while. You're not going to be successful. But it's worth saying that the Home Office have, we approached them earlier and they have not confirmed any details on this. They've simply said, look, we're talking to a lot of different countries. But I think it is interesting that Sir Keir Starmer went to Rome. I was on that trip, met with Giorgia Meloni back in September, that this left-wing Prime Minister is taking very seriously what a right-wing government in Italy are doing, because Italy have had quite a lot of success. They've managed to get the number of people coming into Italy illegally down by, I think, 60% by doing deals with countries like Tunisia and Libya to keep people there. So they announced also a couple of weeks ago deals with some countries in the Balkans, Kosovo, Serbia, North Macedonia, because they do need to do something very urgently. They've said they're going to smash the gangs. The numbers already this year are above what they were for the whole of the last year. They scrapped Rwanda, which was supposed to have been a deterrent. And now, lo and behold, we have Donald Trump in the United States reportedly considering using Rwanda. He, of course, has got elected partly, well, sure, on cost of living, but partly on taking a very strict line on migration. And Germany has also been looking at Rwanda, so we might have turned our back on that scheme. Well, but it sounds like others are interested.
Keir Starmer turned his back on it. But the thing is, the grounds for him doing that, and a lot of the left media, was that Rwanda is cruel, and they didn't like the sound of it. But it sounds quite cruel if you're sending somebody back, or you're making sure that someone can't leave somewhere where they may be being persecuted. So that's the idea of somebody who's a refugee or somebody who's an asylum seeker, coming to this country, because where they are, they feel they're being persecuted. So if you're actually paying, for example, a dictator money to ensure that the people who are being dictated to don't leave, that, to me, is quite cruel.
Well, the idea is that they're making conditions better in some of these countries, education and other programmes. But the fact of the matter is that there are, you know, we're very lucky to live in Britain, and there's millions of people who would love to live here. And while, of course, we should be taking our share of genuine refugees, you know, we have a system that when you get here, you're going to be in a hotel for a long time. Ultimately, the chances are you're going to be allowed to stay. So that's a very obvious pull factor for people coming. And I think the government have realised, you know, Keir Starmer in his 5 missions, there was no mention of small boats, but they've realised recently just what a huge issue this is for British people who think it's very unfair and also very expensive. So they know that they've got to try to crack down on this, because otherwise they're going to be punished just like the Conservatives were. But of course, whether they can really get those numbers down or not, well, that's another matter entirely.
Well, it sounds to me like another wording for foreign aid, which is exactly what we would have given to countries, giving them money so that their supposed place will be better, so people won't come here. But in some reports, it's shown that foreign aid, actually the people get richer and then they travel and move and they're more mobile. But that sounds like another way of just dishing out some cash. And I wonder whether that's going to work. But hey, anything is better than nothing. Catherine, let's talk about the farmers now, because they are very unhappy. Is there any... You spoke to Rachel Reeves. Did you get the impression that she may well consider U-turning on this particular policy?
When I interviewed Rachel Reeves, which was on Friday, she was very firm that they think that it's a fair deal for farmers. They say that if it's a couple owning a farm, they can pass across £3 million. Then it's 20% inheritance tax, half the rate that you or I would pay. They've got 10 years to pay it, and so on and so forth. The Treasury thinks that only about 500 farms a year would be impacted, but the National Farmers Union think that the Treasury have got their figures very wrong, because they say that there's a substantial number of small holdings, which skews the figures. And so we're going to have, we saw yesterday in Wales, protests, tractors, farmers, where the PM was in Llandudno. On Tuesday, big demonstrations coming. The National Farmers Union has organised 1.8 thousand members in Westminster. There's another farmers' demonstration in Westminster too. So the pressure is really ramping up on the government. And if you think back to the year 2000, when fuel prices went through the roof, we had farmers blockading the roads, the truck drivers, huge pressure on the government, food rationing, fuel shortages. It all got very out of hand very quickly. You do wonder what could happen down the line. The government are holding firm at the moment, but let's see if that continues.
But even 20% of 3 million is £600,000. That's a lot of money. Divided over 10 years, which Rachel said you could disperse it over £60,000. Most people don't have that. But this whole thing was meant to trap all those people who are taking the mickey out of the system, like very rich people, of which there are very few, buying land so that they can evade tax.
Yes, that was the thinking behind it, because the government have said that 40% of all the agricultural property relief, the name that was given to this scheme that farmers previously had, went to the 7% wealthiest, so big landowners, people like James Dyson, who've bought up huge amounts of land because it was free of inheritance tax. So the government really wants to crack down on that. However, of course, there's many farmers who work incredibly hard. And of course, Sir Keir Starmer said he wasn't going to put up taxes on working people up in the middle of the night, working long hours, 7 days a week, that say that they are going to get caught by this. And they're really worried that it will drive many small farms out of business, whereas the big conglomerates, will be able to wear it. So, a long way to run on this.
Well, technically, he's not tax working people, because the person who's taxed is dead. I mean, that's true. That's the way they're getting out of it.
But farms tend to pass, don't they, down through families.
Well, that's why it's that's why it's utterly ridiculous. All right, Catherine Foster, thank you very much for talking to me. All right, joining me now, the director and farmer at Rayner Farms, Colin Rayner. Colin, thank you very much for joining us. So, OK, so do you think they've got the figures wrong? Because the government said that it wasn't going to affect as many people, but we're hearing from farmers that they've got the figures wrong.
They've got the figures 100% wrong. And I do remember when my parents inherited the farm in the late 60s, they were poor for 15 years because of the high tax rate. And my parents did without holidays. We had second-hand clothes. But this is nothing about taxation. This is class warfare against the farmers and the Labour Party hatred of the countryside and the farmers. We produce food, we produce good food, we produce cheap food. And I've got 3 daughters who want to carry on farming. They're now worried about their future. I've either got to die before the 31st of March 2026 or stay alive for the next 10 years so they can avoid the tax. We're not making that money on our farms. And the government's going on, they're going after the Dysons. There's very, very few major people that buy farms to avoid tax. And they can just change the tax laws, because as a farmer, we have to prove that we're working farmers. You have to be, you have to have your skin in it. And we've been farming the same farm since 1551. And I'm only the caretaker in my lifetime. My children will take it on, and their children will take it on. And we've got to have food from the UK. We can't have food from Europe, because they're going through the same madness by making them grow wildflowers. So do the Labour Party want our food to come from Argentinian or the Brazilian rainforest? The policy is insanity, and I just think this is class warfare. And I'm in Berkshire at the moment with 100 other farmers. We're all going to London, and I've never seen the countryside so angry. I've even got my plumber going, my electrician's going, and people are coming up to me. And a bus driver the other day, I was getting out of my tractor and said, "God bless the farmers." And I think the Labour Party have got this wrong. And I think they need to reconsider it, but they won't, because they have this dogma, they're right. And they're not going to raise the money they think they're going to raise. And when they do raise the money, they waste it. So this is all about, nothing about taxation. This is to do with class hatred. And we've heard their policy advisor saying, we don't need farmers in the UK. We know what their policy is.
Well, I haven't heard their policy advisor say that, Colin, but did you vote Labour?
No, never.
I just wondered, because I mean, a lot of people voted them and are absolutely astounded at how they are going about running this country. A lot of people very, very concerned. Now, do you think they are right to close that particular loophole, though?
But they could do. It's not beyond the science of men to do that, or women. They just say that if you are a city man, if you suddenly spend £100 million on a farm, and you're not actually getting your hands dirty, you shouldn't have the tax relief. You know, every member of my family works 7 days a week, 12 hours a day to bring in the harvest. You know, we know that because we upset our neighbours sometimes working late. But they've just got this wrong, and they're using that as an excuse to tax people. And they've got their calculations wrong. The figures that come from DEFRA actually challenge the figures that come from the tax office. And I don't think many farmers voted Labour, they just didn't vote. And we had Keir Starmer come to the NFU conference, and he spoke to us eloquently for an hour. But for that hour, he lied to us. And the only thing I can say is that during the, when the Russians took over the farms during the Russian Revolution, they had the decency to shoot the farmers before they saw their farms be taken. And my fear is that my children will not inherit, and my cousins will not inherit the farms, because the tax is so high. And this country is scared. We don't need to go on strike. We don't need to go on strike, because the food will just run out.
Yeah.
And we can get food from foreign lands, but good luck with getting that.
Well, it's at a premium then, and they've got you by the short and curlies, if that's the case. Well, listen, I've got to say, Sir Keir Starmer would say that perhaps he inherited an economy that he wasn't expecting. The black hole was bigger than they expected, that kind of rhetoric. So I suspect that's what will be coming out. Colin, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. That is Colin Rayner. He's a farmer at Rayner Farms. Really good to talk to you. Thank you, Colin. Right, well, it's fast approaching 22 minutes after 3 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, Colleen Rooney is braced for endless Wagatha Christie chats in the jungle. I'll be joined by Showbiz journalists to discuss. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you support the farmers going on strike? This is GB News.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars, so it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight. I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But I mean, give us a flavour of the 2 different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would just love to get to the Football League. So teams like Salford, Stockport County were in our division a couple of years ago, all flying now in the Football League. We just want to do the same. We sat down with the board last year and they told us a vision for the future, and that vision most definitely is that we want to be a Football League club. When we went to the Premier League, I know the boys have been saying that they 30 years will be in the Premier League and winning it. Well, let's hope we are, and let's hope I'm still around to see that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 25 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget as well, you can stream the show live on YouTube. This is GB News, and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you support farmers going on strike? Sir Keir Starmer was accused of running out of the back door like a rat to avoid the angry farmers protesting outside the Welsh Labour conference. That was actually by Gareth Wyn-Jones. I spoke to him yesterday on my show over the controversial changes to inheritance tax on farms. Now, farmers continue to voice their anger, and many have threatened to go on strike, cutting off Britain's domestic food supply. More strikes are expected throughout the next week. Do the government have a major issue on their hands? So I'm asking for the Great British Debate, do you support farmers going on strike? Joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also author and political organiser James Schneider. All right, I'm going to start with you, James Schneider. Do you support potentially farmers going on strike over this?
I support their right to strike. I wouldn't say that I would be in favour of them going on strike, but I support their right to strike if they wish. I don't think it is actually going to happen. I think the odds of it happening are very low. And if it were, there would be lots of farmers who are not going to be caught up in these tax changes, who would be going alongside the small number of farmers who are caught up in the tax changes.
Why do you say that, having listened to a farmer who said that the Treasury have got their figures wrong and actually it catches more people than the government have initially anticipated?
So I don't know precisely why he's saying that, but I think it's probably comparing total overall who could be caught by it and how many are caught by it each year. So the Treasury figures show, because right now you have to apply for the relief so that you don't pay inheritance tax for agricultural land. So they do know the figures for how many people would be caught up in it, which is 450 to 500 a year. Now, the mistake that I think they've actually made is this is meant to be about closing a tax dodge that's got nothing to do with farmers. It's about very rich people buying up farmland, not using it as farmland, because then they don't pay inheritance tax on it. And the Treasury figures show that about half of the farms that fall under that would be caught up in this haven't done any farming for the last 5 years. So I think the mistake that they've made is, rather than saying there should be a 20% inheritance or tax on all of them, they should say, well, if you haven't been doing any sizable amount of farming in the last 5 years, you should pay the full rate because you aren't using it as farming land, which wouldn't, of course, pick the fight with the farmers. It would only be picking the fight with people who bought up lots of farmlands, not really wanting to be farmers.
Crikey. Very sensible, James.
I am.
God, I'm astounded. Danny Kelly.
And now to the left of the panel. There was a farmer on, and I was glued to what he was saying. And he said that it's like envy of the what's the politics?
Politics of envy.
And I'm inclined to think that there's a bit of substance in that. As soon as Keir Starmer announced the 20% levy on private education, I thought, oh, that's nasty. You're going after people with a couple of quid. But that's a fallacy. You don't need to be minted to send your kids to school. We all know that, the sacrifices that parents undertake. And now he's come out with the farmers, because farmers overwhelmingly, they're not Labour supporters, they're more conservative type of people. And they've got all of this land. And I thought, how have you budgeted? Because, albeit, James, let's go with your 500 figure, 500 farms, and they're the ones affected. You've got to wait for someone to die. Now, when the 20% levy was put on the private school fees, Rachel Reeves budgeted it, and she said there's a figure I can give you. It's £1.4 billion, and we're going to spend that money on state
6,500 teachers.
So she's worked it out. How on earth can you work out such an unknown quantity when people need to die before you can claim the 20% VAT?
That's a good question.
20% tax.
Well, that's a good point, because you don't know when they're going to die. So it doesn't make any sense.
It's an attack.
Well, I'm not a Treasury economist, so I couldn't tell you precisely. But I imagine how they've calculated what it will bring in is by looking at the estates over the last few years that have claimed this tax relief. Because basically, if you have more than £500,000 or so, and you die, your estate can be subject to inheritance tax, and then you apply to say, well, no, actually, because my estate is agricultural land, so I should be exempt. So they do have the figures because they are exempting from tax each year.
But they're still alive.
Listen, but there's how much it would be each year from people who would pass away in a given year. The point I'm making about if you were charging 40% on those farms that aren't operating as farms, then the point is that it wouldn't bring in any money from that, because people would stop buying up that land to use as not farms so that they could dodge inheritance tax. They'd invest in something else.
But the point that Danny's made, which I think is a very valid one, and one that nobody's really pointing out, is that you don't know when these people are going to die. So you don't know when you're going to get the money. Even though the objective was to plug a loophole, I suspect they were trying to make some money as well. You don't know when they're going to die.
Sounds to me like
what's the point?
A symbolic attack on landowners who are less likely to vote Labour. That's what it seems to me. And also, a lot of people are saying, well, it's only a bit of land, it's not worth £1 million or something. There is so much pressure on the government to build new houses. You'll be amazed what land is worth. There are new developments springing up all over. I've driven down from Warwickshire, 96 miles and 96 miles.
Oh, we got that early. You got it in early.
I've driven... No, but it's good for people to know that the Midlands is being represented on
well, they can hear your voice.
Well, I'm a Scouser. That's even further.
Oh, it's even further.
But anyway,
crikey.
so I've driven down this great distance, and you could see, like, acres and acres of farmers' fields that is unused, and I'm guessing they're unused. And you can say, well, that's not worth a lot of dough because it's unused. But I tell you what, but the pressure that house developers are under by government targets to build houses and dwellings, that's worth a lot of dough. So a lot of landowners will be sitting on fortunes.
And net zero as well, which Ed Miliband has gone great guns on, has got a bit mad over. Oh, well, look, I remember last week you mentioned this sign that was up on the motorway. Well, somebody has actually sent us a video of that sign.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
Rachel Reeves' grave robber. And that's
wow.
Yeah.
That's the one.
That is the one.
That's the one I mentioned. So basically, and thank you to who, I guess, a GB News viewer. So that is a massive sign, probably about 20 feet wide, and I'm guessing about 15 feet in height, and it's almost written as if it's in blood. And it says, Rachel Reeves, grave robber, London, the 19th of November. That's amazing. What a coincidence. And that just goes to show. And that's near me.
Well, that is near you.
The strength of feeling.
And the 19th of November, so they've already planned that date.
That was the budget?
Yeah, no.
Wow.
It's not the 19th of November yet. That's coming.
That's on Tuesday.
That's on Tuesday.
So what's happening on the 19th of November?
The farmers are coming.
They're coming for their lobby of
So that's been there for what?
Well done, whoever sent that in.
Yeah, very good job. Yeah, but obviously we wouldn't advise any illegal activity if you did stop on a hard shoulder or anything like that. We wouldn't encourage that.
No.
But if you just tuned in, welcome. Fast approaching 33 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, have the police got their priorities wrong as non-hate speech this row continues? First, let's get your headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. These are your headlines at 3:32. Pressure is mounting on the government to reconsider its plan to apply inheritance tax to farmers for the first time. The Prime Minister has been accused of sneaking out like a rat rather than facing farmers protesting at the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Thousands of farmers from across the country are descending on London this week in objection to the government's plan to tax assets when farmers pass away. The government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures, stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. The Home Office has not confirmed to GB News which new countries they may be speaking with or the specifics of any reported deals. £1 billion in extra funding for bus services has been announced by the government. Areas receiving an unprecedented amount of funding include Peterborough, the Isle of Wight and Torbay, with £712 million for councils and more than £200 million for operators. In other news, China is ready to manage differences while working with Donald Trump, according to the country's president. Xi Jinping met with American President Joe Biden for the final time at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperative Summit in Peru. President Xi said that despite ups and downs, the relationship between the two countries has been stable during the last 4 years. Meanwhile, Biden said competition should not veer into conflict. A woman found dead in the boot of a car has been named by police as Harshita Brella. The 24-year-old was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police believe the woman from Corby in Northamptonshire was attacked by someone she knew, but detectives say they're keeping an open mind. A mandatory referral has been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. And finally, tickets for next year's Glastonbury have sold out in less than 40 minutes. Organisers of the Somerset Music Festival apologised to anyone who didn't get a ticket, stating that demand was much higher than supply. Selling at £373.50 plus a £5 booking fee, this year's lineup is rumoured to include Northern rock and roller Sam Fender, punk legends Green Day and pop star Olivia Rodrigo. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So some wintry showers continuing across parts of Scotland with some cloud and rain on the way for much of England and Wales as we go over the next couple of days and into the start of the new working week. That's all thanks to this area of low pressure up in the northwest of the UK, slowly pushing its way south and eastwards as we go into the start of Monday and Tuesday. For the rest of today though, a bit of a mixed picture, plenty of scattered showers around, but some clear skies developing across northern parts of England, much of Scotland, and under those clear skies likely to turn quite chilly, particularly during the early hours of Monday morning. So quite a harsh frost to start the day on Monday here. Perhaps some icy stretches during Monday morning's rush hour. So do take care during the morning rush hour. Further south, a little bit of a milder start due to all that cloud, and outbreaks of showery rain will continue to spread their way south and eastwards as we go through much of Monday morning. These perhaps turning a little heavy across southwestern parts of England, particularly over any high ground. But for central parts of England, North Wales, northern parts of England and Northern Ireland too, a bit of a brighter start to the day. albeit quite a chilly start, with those temperatures dropping below zero, particularly across parts of Scotland. We could see -2 or -3 in some rural spots, and snow showers continuing across the far north of Scotland, perhaps building up to around 10 centimetres of snow over any high ground here. Further south, that area of rain pushes offshore down towards the south coast, and this is the next area of rain that arrives across Northern Ireland. Could turn particularly heavy across Northern Ireland, and we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as well. But further east, there'll be some sunshine, perhaps turning a little hazy through the afternoon, and feeling quite chilly with northerly winds here. Temperatures struggling to reach much above 3 or 4 degrees, but just holding on to that slightly milder air in the southwest as we go through the afternoon. That area of rain across Northern Ireland pushes its way eastwards into northern parts of England, and we could see some quite disruptive sleet and snow, particularly over any high ground through northern England on Monday afternoon. It will be staying quite bright with some sunny spells through much of next week, but it will be feeling really quite chilly with those temperatures well below average for the time of year.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
39 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome. We are Britain's news channel. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. And it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, have the police got their priorities wrong? Kemi Badenoch has said hate crime laws must be reviewed to protect free speech after police launched an investigation into a journalist over a tweet. It was a year-old tweet as well. Julie Bindel is the latest victim, claiming that she faced hate crime questions following a complaint from a transgender man. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, have the police got their priorities wrong? Joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also author and political organiser James Schneider. Danny Kelly, we will start with you.
I think the public perception is that the old Bill, particularly Essex Old Bill, police force, have got their priorities wrong. Now, I still don't know. I'm not on Twitter. I'm one of the few people in the media circle that is not on Twitter. I don't know what she tweeted, but what I do know is that she must know because she deleted it. I don't believe for once, or has that story developed into her saying, "Oh, I do remember what it is now"?
No,
at the time, I thought,
they didn't know. Well, it's just because I don't think she was told what the tweet was. And if you bear in mind that she's always tweeting, that somebody says to you, "Oh, one of the tweets that you deleted."
That's my point. But how many tweets do you delete a year? I bet you only delete a.
Every now and again I delete one, but it could be because I've made a mistake or I've spelled something wrong.
I refuse to believe that you've made a mistake.
I know. I understand it.
To answer the central thrust of your question.
Or I've got something particularly wrong in terms of
so like a typo
information, or I've realised, oh, hang on, that's not quite true. Yeah. But I don't tweet that much.
No, OK. So, to answer the thrust of your question, are the police prioritising knocking on people's doors over tweets and social media posts? I would like to see, I'm not going to sound like an old traditionalist, I'd like to see the coppers patrolling the streets. I'm not saying for 1 second that there is no room for a police officer to investigate something that is criminal. I get that. But I just think on a Sunday morning at 9:30 on Remembrance Sunday, 2 coppers knocking on this woman's door, they wouldn't even give her the information. How are you supposed to acknowledge, defend, respond if they don't even tell you your information?
Well, initially she had reported it to when she spoke about it, she said it was a non-crime hate incident. But it turns out they had actually said that they never said that, but actually what they were looking for was sort of crime, so a racially motivated or tweet. James Schneider.
Yeah, I mean, this has gone clearly way out of control, and it dates back. I mean, it's interesting seeing Kemi Badenoch being opposed to it because it comes from a bill that she voted for. It's the 2022 crime, what's it called? The Police Crime Courts and Sentencing Act, I think, or something. I think it's got those 4 words. It might be in a different order. which is a horrible piece of legislation that contains many weird authoritarian things, making protests can be made illegal because it's, quote, annoying. And it created it put on a kind of statutory basis what had been happening before, which is a sensible thing, which is about collecting information, right? So there's collecting information, and then there's prioritising acting on information. And this bill seems to have shifted things in a direction. Now, I dislike loads of things that people say on the internet. I dislike loads of things that Alison Pearson says on the internet. But the idea that the role of the police should be going around telling you that you've, said nasty things as the priority. Now, of course, you can incite violence with speech. I'm not saying that there are no types of speech that are beyond reproach, but most of the stuff is someone doesn't like something that you've said because they disagree with it, and they might be right to disagree with it. But that's not what police time should be spent on. And it goes. This type of stuff always tends to go against those who sit outside of where the easy mainstream is, whether that's to the left, to the right, or to whatever direction, and it's not really healthy in a society.
Well, IPSO, which is the independent regulator of the UK newspapers magazines, they have now received a complaint from Essex Police because they are not happy with the fact that Alison, who works at the Telegraph, excuse me, and the Telegraph got behind it, and what it would appear they were talking about was claiming that it was a non-crime hate incident. So they backed Alison, and it turns out that what they were actually investigating was something that was inciting racial hatred. So that's where. So now the police are now complaining to the Independent Press Standards organisation for, I think, misinformation from. I mean, so it's going to another level. When actually, I would rather just focused on actual crime.
Yeah, so I think it's always, in all of these cases, it's hard to talk about the specific case because we don't know all of the details, etc. But in general terms, there are people who are being coming into contact with the police over things that they've written on the internet, in a far outweighing the amount that should be happening, and that can be changed.
What's so interesting about it is that the complainant determines what is offensive. And you mentioned the word nasty. I wasn't aware that the police can knock on your door because someone's written something nasty about you. Now, what is nasty to one man may not be nasty to another man. But the police have to take the complainants and their emotions, and they have to work from that central point. So one man might be racist, and another man may say, well, that's not racist. That's just an opinion about demographics.
Yeah, and you get all sorts of mad things. I saw one the other day. There's an Israeli academic who was arrested for hate speech because somebody thought that what he was saying, as in they felt it. But objectively, he hadn't said anything that was wrong, and yet he was still arrested because someone.
And he was nicked.
Yeah, and then he was let go, I think. But I mean,
what a waste of time.
Still, I mean,
that proves my point.
That's really not the sort of thing that should be happening. I mean, especially at protests, the point of the police at protests is to facilitate them taking place. They're part of a democratic framework. It's meant to, how can you have a protest where there aren't fights, where it's facilitated to happen? And the way that this bill has changed things makes that not the case.
All right. Well, listen. What do you think? GBNews.com/you'll say. We'll take a look at some of the things that you've been sending us. But next, is the Colin Rooney-Rebecca Vardy saga about to heat up? Stay with me.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We're talking about Gareth Southgate and his proposed Don. There's a lot of rumours going around saying he's going to get a knighthood. So people like Nana are saying to me, why?
Because he hasn't won anything, has he? Look, I'm not a big fan of football. I watch England and the big matches, but he hasn't won anything. I mean, he hasn't actually won anything. He'll be following in the footsteps of people like Sir Alf Ramsey, Sir Bobby Robson, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What has Gareth Southgate actually won?
Right, don't ask me. Let's ask our guests on this. So, has he truly earned the right to do this? Should all England managers, should you become an England manager and then get knighthood as a result, or is that devaluing the honour? There you see on your screen to debate this, Harry Harris, top football writer, and royal commentator Angela Levin. She knows a thing or two about all of this. Angela, what do you think?
I think absolutely not. I mean, I know he's a good example to people, but he's a sort of almost. He's almost done this. He's almost won that. You can't have someone to have a knighthood if you're an almost. You can't. This is someone who does the most amazing things. This is a hero. This is a serviceman. It's not somebody who does really kindly and looks after his people, and it's just not fun. I think it just diminishes the whole thing of giving people such a high level of gratitude.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, 49 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney went to war earlier in the year at the High Court this summer. I think it was over a 2019 social media post, which quickly went viral. But is the saga continuing as Colleen Rooney is braced for endless Wagatha Christie chats in the jungle after being paired up with Superfan? Let's get the latest from Showbiz reporter Sarah Louise Robertson. Sarah Louise Robertson, can you explain to those of us who have no interest in the jungle whatsoever what's happening?
This is a fantastic signing for us, Nana. I can't wait for tonight. I'm really excited. The photographs are already coming through from Australia, and we've seen Colleen Rooney. She's been doing a canoe exercise, I believe today. But yes, it's an amazing signing. I think it's the biggest signing in terms of financial fee that ITV have ever made to a contestant going into the jungle. Colleen is believed to be being paid £1.5 million. Can you believe it? For her appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, starting today. And this is what I think ITV are hoping to be an explosive signing, because we've obviously heard for over 2 years now. In fact, no, it's been running longer than that. More than that, about 4 years now, the whole ongoing saga between Colleen and another wag, Rebecca Vardy. And this goes back to when Colleen did that posted that famous tweet whereby she claimed that Rebecca Vardy had been selling stories about her and her life to the Sun newspaper, a claim which Rebecca Vardy strenuously denied. She ended up taking Colleen to court in what was the showdown of all court showdowns between the two biggest wags at that time in the country, and it ended up with Rebecca Vardy having egg on her face because Colleen Rooney won that court case.
Wasn't it on? I think you said tweet. Wasn't it on Instagram? Wasn't it on Instagram?
It went on Twitter.
Really? I thought it was Instagram.
Well.
Oh, it went on Instagram.
No, it was Twitter. It was Twitter. It was absolutely huge at the time.
Because didn't she say that the offensive or whatever she was Colleen specifically sent things to or stopped all the responses from other people so she could tell there's only one person that could have responded. And I thought that was on Instagram.
Yes, she caught her on Instagram. That's how she caught her, because she basically, Colleen got what was the name that was given to her? Wagatha Christie. That was the moniker that was addressed afterwards. Because what Colleen had done, she'd been very, very clever, and she had made her stories, her Instagram stories, that she believed that Rebecca Vardy had been watching and taken screenshots of and sending it into the Sun newspaper. She had basically took off everybody, all of her friends, everybody, and Rebecca Vardy was the only person that could see these stories. And that's how Colleen caught Rebecca bang to rights. But Rebecca still proclaims her innocence. She's the one that keeps coming out, giving interviews, saying that Colleen, she's harping on about this. She's still going on. So the fur fight, the metaphorical fur fight between these two women is still going, Nana, after all these years. Now, Colleen, before going into the jungle, she granted an interview to the Mail on Sunday, saying that she had drawn a line over everything. She didn't want to go on about it anymore. As far as she was concerned, it had been done. The court case had happened. She'd laid the war of the wags to rest.
Now, but Rebecca Vardy's not going in the jungle as well, is she? So they're not.
No,
that wouldn't happen. I'm just checking, because some people might be thinking that will be happening as well.
No. Colleen said she wants to move forward with her life. However, ITV, having paid £1.5 million, I think will be hoping to have a little bit of drama to keep this, people tuning in, people watching to see what Colleen's going to say.
Do you know what I think? I think Colleen's too clever. Colleen's too clever for that.
She's
that'll be
very
giving Rebecca
clever.
Vardy some unnecessary publicity, and she's probably thinking, no, I'm not going to mention that at all. But maybe she won't. Listen, Sarah Louise Robertson, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. So what do you think? Are you going to be watching I'm a Celebrity later on? It's not really I just can't be bothered anymore. I've lost interest, but if they did ask me, I may consider it. How much? 1.5 million? I'm all yours. Well, listen, stay tuned. Loads more still to come. My monologue on what the police should actually be doing. Stay with me. But next, let's get an update with your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So some wintry showers continuing across parts of Scotland, with some cloud and rain on the way for much of England and Wales as we go over the next couple of days and into the start of the new working week. That's all thanks to this area of low pressure up in the northwest of the UK, slowly pushing its way south and eastwards as we go into the start of Monday and Tuesday. For the rest of today, though, a bit of a mixed picture, plenty of scattered showers around, but some clear skies developing across northern parts of England, much of Scotland, and under those clear skies likely to turn quite chilly, particularly during the early hours of Monday morning. So quite a harsh frost to start the day on Monday here. Perhaps some icy stretches during Monday morning's rush hour. So do take care during the morning rush hour. Further south, a little bit of a milder start due to all that cloud, and outbreaks of showery rain will continue to spread their way south and eastwards as we go through much of Monday morning. These perhaps turning a little heavy across southwestern parts of England, particularly over any high ground. But for central parts of England, North Wales, northern parts of England and Northern Ireland too, a bit of a brighter start to the day, albeit quite a chilly start with those temperatures dropping below zero. Particularly across parts of Scotland, we could see -2 or -3 in some rural spots, and snow showers continuing across the far north of Scotland, perhaps building up to around 10 centimetres of snow over any high ground here. Further south, that area of rain pushes offshore down towards the south coast, and this is the next area of rain that arrives across Northern Ireland. Could turn particularly heavy across Northern Ireland, and we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as well. But further east, there'll be some sunshine, perhaps turning a little hazy through the afternoon, and feeling quite chilly with northerly winds here. Temperatures struggling to reach much above 3 or 4 degrees, but just holding on to that slightly milder air in the southwest as we go through the afternoon. That area of rain across Northern Ireland pushes its way eastwards into northern parts of England, and we could see some quite disruptive sleet and snow, particularly over any high ground through northern England on Monday afternoon. It will be staying quite bright with some sunny spells through much of next week, but it will be feeling really quite chilly with those temperatures well below average for the time of year.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's just coming up to 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, author and political organiser James Schneider, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, as farmers prepare to strike and protest over Rachel Reeves' inheritance tax raid, I'm asking, do you support them going on strike? I've got a poll up on X asking you that very question. Do you support our farmers going on strike? Then, in my niggle in a few minutes' time, what do you want our police force to prioritise? Policing thought or policing crime?
Let's get the police to do the one thing that every member of the public wants them to do, get after antisocial behaviour and violence and threats.
And what is Rachel Reeves talking about here?
Why it is so worrying that at this crucial time, the Prime Minister and Chancellor concocted a new jobs tax to arrive in the spring. Despite all of their election promises to cut national insurance contributions, they're actually raising them against the strong advice of business and trades unions.
Well, I'll play the full clip for you later. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Hensler.
Nana, thank you. It's just gone 4 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Pressure is mounting on the government to reconsider its plan to apply inheritance tax to farmers for the first time. The Prime Minister has been accused of sneaking out like a rat rather than facing farmers protesting at the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Thousands of farmers from across the country are descending on London this week in objection to the government's plan to tax assets over £1 million by 20% when farmers die. Earlier, GB News spoke to farmer Charles Godby.
They now, I'm sure, realise that their figures are wrong. We've got the evidence to show that they're wrong, but they're just burying their head in the sand. They don't want to admit it. We're not a farming dynasty. Yet we, through working hard, investing everything we have and taking far below the minimum wage, have managed to build up a sustainable farming business.
The government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures, stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. The Home Office has not confirmed to GB News which new countries they may be speaking with or the specifics of any reported deals. Meanwhile, the Home Office has confirmed that more than 400 illegal migrants crossed the Channel in small boats, as GB News first revealed yesterday. Official figures show that 425 people made the journey in 9 small boats on Saturday before being intercepted by Border Force vessels. More than 33,500 illegal migrants have now crossed since the start of the year. That's already 4,000 more than the total number who crossed during the whole of 2023. Meanwhile, there are reports that Donald Trump's team are looking at plans to deport illegal migrants to Rwanda. Following the scheme that was drawn up by the Conservative government, the president-elect is reportedly considering a number of different countries to send illegal immigrants to. A source close to Trump's team has said he campaigned on a promise to crack down on illegal immigration, and he is determined to stick to it. In other news, hundreds of drones and missiles have been fired into Ukraine as Russia ramps up attacks on infrastructure ahead of the winter. In the biggest attack for several months, Ukraine's foreign minister said energy and water utilities have taken severe damage with power cuts in several regions, while 7 people have been killed. The election of Donald Trump this month has increased the uncertainty around the conflict, with the prospect of a looming push towards negotiations expected. £1 billion in extra funding for bus services has been announced by the government. Areas receiving an unprecedented amount of funding include Peterborough, the Isle of Wight and Torbay, with £712 million for councils and more than £200 million for operators. Bus fares went up by 50% recently, where they are now capped at £3 for a single trip. Earlier, GB News spoke to Transport Secretary Louise Hay.
First time we are committing this funding in a fair, transparent way. The previous government took funding streams and they made areas compete against each other, with particularly rural areas losing out. Today, the funding settlement will give areas like Essex, Kent, Devon and areas across the north like Blackburn and Liverpool record sums of money to put into their bus services, which will increase reliability, improve real-time information and things like accessibility at bus stops and bus stations.
And China is ready to manage differences while working with Donald Trump. That's according to the country's president. Xi Jinping met with American President Joe Biden for the final time at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperative Summit in Peru. President Xi said that despite ups and downs, the relationship between the two countries has been stable during the last 4 years. Meanwhile, Biden said competition should not veer into conflict. President-elect Trump has pledged to apply tariffs to Chinese imports. During his last term of office, he labelled COVID the Chinese virus. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, I don't know about you, but I would rather our police worked on actual serious crime. What this whole Alison Pearson debacle has uncovered is that the police appear to have plenty of resource when it comes to tracking down high-profile people who may have posted hurty words. But for you or I, when we report a burglary or shoplifting or, in many cases, violent crime, the police are often slow to respond, if they even respond at all. Now, I am not saying bash the police, because whenever I've had to deal with them, they have always been courteous and in most cases responsive. But what I am saying is, should they really be getting bogged down in all of this? In Alison's case, and I can't say too much because I think it may be a live investigation, but apparently it wasn't a non-crime hate incident they were pursuing her for at all, but in fact an actual crime. And they, the police, have now apparently reported the Telegraph to the watchdog Ipso for inaccurate reporting. So this whole thing is escalated. In a statement, Essex Police said, officers went to a residential address to arrange a time to do an interview with a woman about a complaint made by a member of the public. That's why, under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, no further information was provided. This call was made by officers who were in the area at the time to simply set up a time to speak in the coming days. At no stage during the short interaction between the woman and our officers was she informed that the report being investigated was being treated as a non-crime hate incident, and to suggest otherwise is wholly inaccurate and misleading. As the public would expect, we have body-worn video of this interaction, which entirely supports our position in this respect. Oh, enough already. Stop the world. I want to get off. There are many times where people have posted abhorrent things to me or about me on social media. I could have reported each and every single one of them. But the reason I didn't was because, frankly, I can block them, or better still, ignore them. Now, I do agree that if someone breaks any law, they should be held to account. But the problem with online word crime, which I do believe can go too far, is it is subjective and open to different interpretations, and people often just get things wrong. And in my view, responses for all crimes need to be proportionate. And I'm afraid if we are to have a truly effective police force, then priority needs to be prioritised. I get that in some of these online cases, nobody wants to look bad or foolish and stand down. But let's get a grip of this and ask whether heavy-handed responses to this sort of thing are reasonable and proportionate, and whether these crimes are actually a priority. Also, I absolutely want respect and tolerance in the way in which we communicate with each other online. I also want to feel safe on the streets and in my home. And to me, the latter is a greater priority. And given the state of the Crown Prosecution Service, where a care worker can be jailed for longer for live-streaming a riot than a machete-wielding youth who's been jailed for killing someone, you've got to ask yourself, what on earth is going on?
I am at the moment campaigning like mad in my constituency, and many others are, to get the police onto the streets to stop the shoplifters going on in open, standing on the pavements, going into shops, threatening the shopkeepers, raiding these places to the tune of £10,000 a time, destroying the peace and certainty of the high streets. That's where we want the police. What I don't want the police to do is to go investigating something that happened a year or so ago that was a comment from a journalist. This is kind of thought police territory, and whatever else happens, that's got to stop. Let's get the police to do the one thing that every member of the public wants them to do: get after antisocial behaviour and violence and threats.
Well, that was Ian Duncan-Smith speaking earlier on LBC. I'm just not convinced that, given the limited resources and the cash our police have to investigate crimes, that dealing with online word crime in a heavy-handed manner is the best use of their time and energy. But before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up today. In my niggle, I'd much rather police worked on actual serious crime instead of policing what people say online. Is there a threat to freedom of speech? Ministers are preparing to strike a series of Italy-style deals with several countries to help them stop thousands of illegal migrants setting off on a journey to the UK. I'll bring you the latest. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour hypocrites working on a Rwanda-style migrant deal? In Worldview, I'll be speaking to performer and mystifier Uri Geller all about the US and the Royal Navy manoeuvring against Russian spy platforms deep beneath the Irish Sea. You won't want to miss that one. That's on the way as ever. Send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Well, listen, for more reaction on police priorities, I'm joined by former police officer Norman Brennan. Norman, really good to talk to you. Look, I love the fact that the police will look to try and deal with every crime, but surely hurty words crimes or... and this, I suppose, they claimed inciting racial hatred is what they said it was. I'm not saying you shouldn't go and police a crime like that, but I just feel perhaps this is a bit overkill.
Well, good afternoon, Nana. I completely agree. I mean, I'm an old school police officer, I'm an old school detective, and in 1986, we had Section 5 of the Public Order Act, which is any threatening words, behaviour, visible sign, representation that is likely to upset someone at the scene or within the sight or hearing. That is the crime that we use to investigate. But I'll be quite honest with you, the lunatics have completely taken over the asylum as far as law and order is concerned. I saw the other day a 9-year-old pupil apparently said somebody else smelt like fish. Well, to be quite honest with you, that's not a police matter. That's a school and a parenting matter. And I'll be honest with you again, a few decades ago, what we used to call each other in class or in the playground, some of us are beyond death row now. We've also got a pub that is called the Midget. Well, apparently somebody that doesn't even drink in there complained. The police were informed and there may be an investigation. So when I say the lunatics have taken over the criminal justice system, it's also social media as well. What the public want and what I want, I'm a member of the public now, although I'm a leading law and order campaigner, is for the police to investigate knife crime, burglary, shoplifting, car theft, pedal cycle, the types of crimes that have gone through the roof, along with antisocial behaviour that blights many people in many areas of Britain. They don't want the police to be knocking on the door saying, you've said something that hurt someone. Yesterday, I posted on social media that I thought the London mayor was a weasel because he congratulated and sent his best wishes to Chris Caber's parents, yet couldn't bring himself to wish the best to NX121 that carried out his public duty, what the public would want, by challenging someone that threatened his or somebody else's life. So truly, yes, the lunatics have taken over the asylum, social media, and it's about time that police got back to doing what the public want, answering their call and investigating their crimes.
Well, obviously, Sadiq Khan isn't here to defend himself on that one, so, yeah, but that was a bit of an odd behaviour that he would do that immediately. He should have known some detail about Chris Kaba. I suspect he would have known something, and now, obviously, the truth has come out that Chris Kaba was quite a dangerous gangster, and this police officer was doing his duty and has been cleared, but also has been named, which I think is absolutely abhorrent. But if we come back to policing thought, do you think that these officers go and think, oh, God, we don't really want to do this? Or do you think they're going there and actually feeling that this is the right use of their time?
I agree with you. I actually sit down and speak and have a drink with officers. I'm in touch with them. I'm one of their lead independent spokespersons. It's not them that choose to investigate this. And the public that think that there's hundreds or thousands of police officers spending all of their time looking at computers, the types of offences that are perceived as hurt crime are normally picked up by algorithms, by a civilian member of staff. And senior police officers are the ones, the chief constables, PCCs and the College of Policing, they're the ones with no backbones. They're the ones that say, this is nonsense. We want our frontline officers out there, visible, doing what the public want, not knocking on people's doors saying, did you say something that might have hurt somebody? Because that's not what frontline policing is about. It's not why I joined the police, and I can tell the public now, tens of thousands of frontline officers like me are sick and tired of this woke, weary, wokery nonsense that really has taken over society. Like last week alone, Nana, just to finish off, there was 3 triple stabbings in London. One was dead. Another one is facing life-changing injuries. There was 3 there was a triple shooting. One is dead. Last week in the Midlands, there was 2 children convicted of macheting 3 other children, or the 3 children macheting 2 children to death. I mean, that's what we should be talking about. The moment this news is all about somebody that might have said something that hurt someone else. Well, we live in 2024. There's a lot of people that say hurtful things, but there's a lot more important things for the police to be dealing with. And being on the streets and investigating crime and attending calls is what I know frontline police officers want to do.
Norman Brennan, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is, of course, Norman Brennan. He's a former police officer. Well, 17 minutes after 4 o'clock, ministers are reportedly plotting a series of Italy-style deals to stop thousands of illegal migrants setting off towards the UK. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is expected to pay millions of pounds to countries such as Turkey and Vietnam in return for cooperation and security agreements. And all of this after more than 400 illegal migrants crossed yesterday, taking the total to over 33,000. Well, let's speak to GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, to get the details. So what exactly are the details of this that has been muted? Now, this was in The Times. The Times reported this.
Yes, so the Sunday Times broke this story this morning. They are reporting that the government is working on deals that they expect to be announced before the end of the year with Kurdistan, with Turkey and Vietnam to basically prevent people coming from those countries all the way across Europe to the Channel and ultimately into Britain. And through a combination of sort of cracking down on the gangs, we hear a lot about that, don't we? And also giving incentives to people to make it better for them to stay where they are. Now, worth saying that we did approach the Home Office about this, and while they said that, yes, absolutely, the Vietnam scheme is already up and running. It was actually up and running under the Conservatives. That's largely social media posts to basically say to people, look, don't bother coming. But in the case of Kurdistan and Turkey, they will not be drawn. They simply said that they are talking to a lot of countries about how to manage this and sharing the fact that, of course, it is a challenge for the whole of Europe, not just us. But I think it is interesting that the Prime Minister went to Italy to meet with Giorgia Meloni, the right-wing leader there, to study how Italy have been dealing with this, because they have had some success. They've got the number of people arriving illegally down by some 60%. And part of how they've done that is deals with countries like Tunisia and Libya that lots of people are setting out to Italy and Europe from. And so they're looking at how they may be able to replicate that. Of course, without a deterrent like we potentially would have had in Rwanda, it's difficult to see how successful they're going to be without that, because there will always be people who will want to come here. And once they get here, we see that they're in hotels or they're kept, the processing takes ages. But by and large, not that many of them end up being sent back. So the thinking is, if they can crack down on the gang, stop them coming in the first place. But of course, it's much, much easier said than done. But I think a recognition that people are very cross about this in this country, and they need to try and have some success, because, of course, that's one of the main reasons that people booted the Tories out of office. They said they'd stop the boats, and they did anything but.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much. That's Catherine Forster, GB News political correspondent. Well, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour hypocrites working on a Rwanda-style migrant deal? That's on the way. Stay tuned.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie, really good to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look,
you won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first.
Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
No, it's salty, yeah.
It's
OK,
salty.
hang on, bit more.
OK.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes, nailed it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are...
Oh, you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's 23 minutes after 4 o'clock. You've missed half of the show, but it's fine. You're here now. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour hypocrites working on an Italian-style migrant deal? Ministers are apparently preparing to strike a series of Italy-style deals with several countries to help them stop thousands of illegal migrants coming to Britain. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is expected to copy Italy's model of paying millions of pounds to countries in return for them doing more to stop illegal boat crossings. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking you, are Labour hypocrites, though, on this one? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, also author and political organiser James Schneider. James Schneider, I'm going to start with you. Is this sort of hypocrisy? I mean, first of all, Giorgia Meloni's government are sort of more right-wing as well.
I don't think it's hypocrisy. I think that learning lessons from Giorgia Meloni in this case is not what the government should be doing. But it's not hypocrisy because they didn't say that they wouldn't necessarily do that. Like, let's actually, what does an Italian-style deal mean, or at least in the reporting that we've had today?
Well, I'm talking about the cruelty, though.
Yeah.
So in hypocrisy, it's cruelty because they were talking about Rwanda being cruel.
Right. Well, it is a cruel policy if you look at how it has been practiced by Meloni. So basically, what she has done, and it's not just Italy; it's the whole EU has done this, and they pay money to Libya and Tunisia. Tunisia both are non-democratic. Libya basically doesn't really have a government. To put the border effectively in those countries. And there's a huge amount of reporting from credible organisations about the treatment that people get there. So it isn't, they're saying they're trying to deal with it upstream, but really what that means is paying governments to do the dirty work for them, paying these other governments in North Africa to do the dirty work for them. That's what Italy have been doing. Now, let's see what the Starmer government actually brings forward. But if he's taking advice from Maloney last month or 2 months ago. He went to Rome to go and meet her, and they briefed it to the press that he was learning these lessons from her. I don't think it's the right way to be going.
Yeah, well, the Home Office are sort of slightly backtracking on all of this sort of detail. So this has come from the Times. Danny Kelly, your thoughts?
I don't think it's hypocritical, because I think Rwanda, which I wish Keir Starmer had have given it a chance to take off as a deterrent. I think Rwanda was sending people somewhere, and what we're trying to do is prevent people from coming in. So I think they're different.
Well, when I say hypocritical, I'm talking about the cruelty. The reason why the Labour Party was saying that Rwanda was wrong was because it was cruel.
Yeah.
Now, I'm saying that this particular policy could be seen as cruel as well.
Well, I think what it tells you, Nana, is that finally the Labour administration is recognising that we're talking about economic migrants and not people fleeing for their lives. Because last time I looked in Vietnam, there was no war, there's no authoritarian regime carrying out mass murder based on religion or whatever. So these are economic migrants. Otherwise, why would a Labour Party be paying governments tens of millions of pounds to keep people who are at risk of death or torture confined into that country?
Well, exactly. Well, that's the point, though, isn't it?
It is the point.
In some of those countries, and I don't know, OK, the ones that they've listed, I don't know whether there's torture or anything going on.
No,
but they may well, if they extend that could be, maybe that's across the board.
Sure. So these are economic migrants we're talking about. And I'm relieved at last the Labour administration, rather than calling asylum seekers or economic migrants irregular migration, I'm really pleased that they're addressing. And just to go back to James's point, I think if a right-wing politician has an idea that works, I don't think it's wrong not to listen to...
Could you imagine if the Tory party had come up with that, though, to the Labour Party at the beginning, whilst they were in office? I'm sure there would have been ridiculous backlash against the Tory government for that particular policy.
I think Starmer, he understands that he has to get a grip of this, let's do him a favour, irregular migration. And I think he understands that. I think the next election is completely dependent upon him getting this right. And I hope he does get it right. And I hope he does smash the gangs, by the way. I'm not ideologically intransigent. I want him to succeed.
Well, we all want him to succeed in it, but some of us thought that Rwanda was a good deterrent.
I did as well, and he never let the planes take off as well.
Yeah. Do you think that Rwanda was a good deterrent, James?
We'll never know.
Well, yeah, OK, so we'll never know. I don't think it was a good policy. I don't think it was a good policy because it was taking people that were applying for asylum here, applying for refugee status in Britain, and not granting it to them. So there's one thing which would be processing in a different country, which I think is a waste of money and a waste of time. But then if it's granted, then they get the refugee status here because they are refugees. That wasn't in the Rwanda plan. The Rwanda plan is they would then stay in Rwanda, which is why I'm opposed to it. Whether it was a good deterrent or not, we don't know because it never happened. But it was not a good. It was not a good policy.
But I was asking you whether you thought it was a good deterrent.
I don't think.
It sounds like Donald Trump is interested in it now. These are the rumours.
How do you mean?
Well, it sounds like
he's going to send people to Rwanda.
Yeah, these are the rumours that potentially he's interested in that.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to get loads of rumours, and some of them are going to be true. I mean, who knows? But just because another country does it, Italy is doing this, it doesn't mean that it's good. Now, that doesn't mean that you could have a returns agreement with Vietnam. We have a returns agreement with Albania. That makes it easier for people to be repatriated to Albania. We could have that with Vietnam. That would be perfectly sensible. But that wouldn't be an Italian-style deal. The Italian-style deal is when you basically beef up the border force of another country, generally speaking, with bad human rights records that does nasty things to people, so that you don't have to deal with them yourself.
But there could be people being persecuted in those countries where fleeing persecution from the countries that we have not listed as bad countries because there's no war going on. But this particular policy would trap those people in, and you're giving money to dictators ultimately in many of these things, and then just to trap these people in a place that they don't like. You don't know the full levels of persecution.
You know, Turkey, Vietnam and the Kurdish region, as I understand, they have to be safe places. Otherwise, I just cannot see a Labour government paying another government millions of pounds to keep people in persecution. Now, if we're talking about Iran, Iraq, Syria, I think predominantly they're the three countries where people, genuine, if you like, asylum seekers are fleeing for their lives from. There's no way any government would say, give Iraq £500 million, keep them inside your domain.
Well, that is what the papers were suggesting. We don't know if it's accurate, but the papers were suggesting today that they were going to give money to the Kurdish region of Iraq to keep people there.
Yeah. And that's could be a regional thing rather than the country Iraq. It's like the northwest of England.
Yeah, sure. But, for example, the Yazidis who were attacked and genocided by ISIS, they're in that region. There are people there who you could understand that they would be legitimate refugees, wouldn't want to be in that country for a variety of completely reasonable reasons, and trapping them there doesn't really seem the right thing to do.
I'm just pleased that they've acknowledged that there are economic migrants. And then if you wanted to develop that thought, you could almost sort of start to ask and interrogate the government to say, so what percentage of people do you think actually just want to make a better life for themselves? Or what percentage of people do you think are fleeing for their lives? I'd just love to have that conversation.
Well, we don't really know, but I suppose it's the processing. Most people get here and the majority of them stay, which is the problem that we have in this country, that even if you are somebody who is not fleeing persecution, you're not a genuine asylum seeker, your chances of staying in this country once you leave the safety of France are almost near 100%. But James Schneider, Danny Kelly, thank you very much. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up for the next great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is Ed Miliband's net zero plan doomed to fail? But first, let's get your latest news headlines from Sophia Wenster.
Nana, thank you, and good afternoon. Your headlines at 4:32. Pressure is mounting on the government to reconsider its plan to apply inheritance tax to farmers for the first time. The Prime Minister has been accused of sneaking out like a rat rather than facing farmers protesting at the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Thousands of farmers from across the country are descending on London this week in objection to the government's plan to tax assets when farmers die. The government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures, stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. The Home Office has not confirmed to GB News which new countries they may be speaking with or the specifics of any reported deals. Now, £1 billion in extra funding for bus services has been announced by the government. Areas receiving an unprecedented amount of funding include Peterborough, the Isle of Wight and Torbay, with £712 million for councils and more than £200 million for operators. And China is ready to manage differences while working with Donald Trump, according to the country's president. Xi Jinping met with the American President Joe Biden for the final time at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperative Summit in Peru. President Xi said that despite ups and downs, the relationship between the two countries has been stable during the last 4 years. Meanwhile, Biden said competition should not veer into conflict. In other news, a woman found dead in the boot of a car has been named by police as Harshita Brella. The 24-year-old was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police believe the woman from Corby in Northamptonshire was attacked by someone she knew, but detectives say they're keeping an open mind. A mandatory referral has been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. And finally, tickets for next year's Glastonbury have sold out in less than 40 minutes. Organisers of the Somerset Music Festival apologised to anyone who didn't get a ticket, stating the demand was much higher than supply. Selling at £373.50 plus a £5 booking fee, this year's lineup is rumoured to include Northern rock and roller Sam Fender, punk legends Green Day and pop star Olivia Rodrigo. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Keir
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So some wintry showers continuing across parts of Scotland with some cloud and rain on the way for much of England and Wales as we go over the next couple of days and into the start of the new working week. That's all thanks to this area of low pressure up in the northwest of the UK, slowly pushing its way south and eastwards as we go into the start of Monday and Tuesday. For the rest of today, though, a bit of a mixed picture, plenty of scattered showers around, but some clear skies developing across northern parts of England, much of Scotland, and under those clear skies likely to turn quite chilly, particularly during the early hours of Monday morning. So quite a harsh frost to start the day on Monday here. Perhaps some icy stretches during Monday morning's rush hour. So do take care during the morning rush hour. Further south, a little bit of a milder start due to all that cloud, and outbreaks of showery rain will continue to spread their way south and eastwards as we go through much of Monday morning. These perhaps turning a little heavy across southwestern parts of England, particularly over any high ground. But for central parts of England, North Wales, northern parts of England and Northern Ireland too, a bit of a brighter start to the day, albeit quite a chilly start with those temperatures dropping below zero. Particularly across parts of Scotland, we could see -2 or -3 in some rural spots, and snow showers continuing across the far north of Scotland, perhaps building up to around 10 centimetres of snow over any high ground here. Further south, that area of rain pushes offshore down towards the south coast, and this is the next area of rain that arrives across Northern Ireland. Could turn particularly heavy across Northern Ireland, and we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as well. But further east, there'll be some sunshine, perhaps turning a little hazy through the afternoon, and feeling quite chilly with northerly winds here. Temperatures struggling to reach much above 3 or 4 degrees, but just holding on to that slightly milder air in the southwest as we go through the afternoon. That area of rain across Northern Ireland pushes its way eastwards into northern parts of England, and we could see some quite disruptive sleet and snow, particularly over any high ground through northern England on Monday afternoon. It will be staying quite bright with some sunny spells through much of next week, but it will be feeling really quite chilly with those temperatures well below average for the time of year.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Ed Miliband's net zero plan doomed to fail? The Prime Minister wants Britain to be a climate leader, with the obstacles facing the government's plan seem increasingly large. So Keir Starmer and Energy Secretary Ed Miliband have been embracing the spirit of COP. That's, of course, the climate conference, with the Prime Minister declaring that the single most important way to hit emissions targets will be to generate more renewable energy. But other delegates from the biggest nations such as the US, China, Japan and Canada weren't even at the conference. So can the UK be the climate leader if nobody follows? For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Ed Miliband's net zero plan doomed to fail? Joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also author and political organiser James Schneider. Danny Kelly.
I think it is doomed to fail. I think it's increasingly insurmountable. The plans, it's great to have plans. It's great to have plans, ambitious plans, but are they achievable? I think also one thing that Keir Starmer said is that he wants to, by, I think the figure was 81%, he wants to clean up our emissions by 81% by 2030, I think, rather than 2035. So EU-wide, it's a 2035 sort of target, and he's brought it forward to 2030. Eating less meat, as I understand.
Well, he can eat less meat if he doesn't want to. Some people can't eat all the other plant stuff, and also plants may have feelings as well.
What's so interesting is about the list of countries that I know they do. That you read out, the people who were conspicuous by their absence. You got the big hitters. You got the USA. You've got Japan. Who else was absent? India.
Well,
I get frustrated that we're such, in the grand scheme of things, such a tiny little country on the global stage. I'm talking about geography here.
But the US, China, Japan, Canada, Russia, I don't think we're there either. I mean, Russia's a massive landmass. If you look at Russia on the size of everything in the world, you think, wow.
Do you know how many time zones Russia has?
No.
James?
9?
I think it's 12.
12.
Wow. It's that big.
Yeah, so that's the point. So the big emitters and the big people who are doing all this...
They don't give a damn.
...weren't there. And also, they all flew there in private jets. How stupid do they think we are? James Schneider.
Well, the people who run the world do indeed think that we're very stupid, and we're not very stupid, which is why we know that COP isn't going to do all the things that we need to do, because if we have in general terms, a ruling elite in country after country that is benefiting from the present order of things, they're not going to be the ones to make it change. And I think that's part of the problem with Ed Miliband's plans, which in some parts are ambitious and in some parts are good, but he's trying to do them, in effect, with one hand tied behind his back by two things. There are two bits of rope tying his hands.
Well, he's tied the rope himself.
Yeah, he has, of course. But we should, because we want to have a good energy policy, we should see what the issues are. And the first one is that they're not putting in the levels of investment that you need to build out a new energy infrastructure.
£22 billion, that's what they put towards it.
22 billion into carbon capture, which is a bung to existing companies. And this is my second point.
Well, yeah, that's silly.
So most of the money that they're putting forward is to de-risk private investment. It's not what it should be. We should say energy is pretty much the most important thing that we have, and we should have a national strategy to make sure that we have the energy that we need at prices that work for homes and for industry and for businesses, and that it is clean and green. And this is a huge effort. And that's not how we're doing it. We're doing it so that we can have some projects that private capital can make money on, where we, as the public, we take the risk. That's why it may be a dream when it shouldn't be a dream. We do need to do this. We need to do it very, very fast. And it's a hugely difficult thing to do.
Well, I think that the problem with it is that, when you do things like closing off all your oil and gas or new licences and things like that, when you haven't got the things in place, so allowing steel plants to close so that in the interim you're going to be buying from people like China, so then that's actually a higher carbon footprint. Then you're coming up with this electric car nonsense where the infrastructure isn't in place for the thing, and nobody's going to buy them anyway. I mean,
no, we need to get the infrastructure.
The infrastructure for these things is not there.
No, so, and that's the thing. That's why we do need the ambitious national strategy, which is going to be public money and public returns on public money. You know, if we're going to invest in this stuff, we should be seeing a return.
Well, carbon capture again.
And the reason why we need it is this infrastructure. They're putting a new connecting grid so that we can connect to bits of Europe undersea cabling. We need these sorts of things because sometimes it's not sunny and sometimes it's not windy. There's a problem called the Dunkelflaute.
The Dunkelflaute.
Which energy people... Dunkelflaute.
OK, I'm fluent in German. Dunken, dark, Flaute, ja, doldrums.
Very good. Wow.
They practiced that earlier.
Oh, no, why?
Well, because I'm not going to give you the credit for that. You can't speak.
I'll give the game away.
Dunkelflaute, ja.
What does this mean? Mein Kuchenschreiber ist kaputt.
It's broken, all right. I tell you what...
No, what is it then?
I don't know.
My pen is broken, Danny.
What I find so frustrating...
I've got about 30 seconds.
OK, 22 billion, that's the black hole that the Tories allegedly left. So many people are so frustrated. We are 1% of all CO2. We're almost punitive. We're almost punishing people through taxes. 22 billion, the pensioners have lost the winter fuel, the farmers, everyone's getting hit for this insurmountable ambition of, as my new friend today called him Freudianly, Ed Zero.
Well, look, I can't say... I mean, carbon capture is a nonsense in every place it's been tried, including a place in Milwaukee. It cost $7 billion, and they had to scrap it because it doesn't work. And the carbon they capture, so it's the oil and gas companies that will buy into the scheme. Then they use the carbon to fire into the gas wells, to oil and gas wells, to create more oil and gas. So that's why the big oil and gas companies are getting behind behind it because they're going to use the carbon to release more oil and gas. And all
it's
the
just a
pipe
subsidy
work,
for them.
And all the pipe work that goes for carbon capture as well. So it's not just this, it's going to cost a fortune because they've got to deal with the carbon and the pipes to send it all to this capture site in the first place. It's an absolute joke. I don't even know whether Ed Miliband has read about it. But anyway, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing today. Let's go to Dan Bryan in Hull. Dan, Ed Zero.
Ed Zero.
Are his plans doomed?
Ed Zero. Yes, of course, because like any lie, once you start lying, it grows legs and grows and grows and grows until you can no longer hide the fact when everything becomes obvious. Like what your colleague was saying about the massive infrastructure that we need to put in place, and the investment into renewables just hasn't been done. Yet they have closed down all of our fossil fuel supplies, therefore pushing the prices right up. But they still look down the lens of a camera and they lie to our faces in our living rooms. They're absolute hypocrites, like Prince Harry and that woman flying private to get bubblegum, for God's sake. I've had enough.
I think we all have. Although Ed Miliband would say that he is telling you his thoughts and his plans to try and make this world a better place in terms of energy. Thank you, Dan Bryan. I think I've said it better than he would. Really good to talk to you. That's our great British voice, Dan Bryan. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Coming up, joining me, performer Mr. Fire Uri Geller. He's got some news for us.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The latest Channel 4 Dispatches documentary has revealed details about the royal family's finances, including reports that private royal estates have received millions of pounds of income from public bodies and charities.
Yeah, it's been claimed that the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall portfolios have generated almost £50 million.
Well, the contracts with public bodies said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice, an £11.4 million deal between Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. This is what appeared on the programme last night.
Charles and William aren't telling you about their secret millions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for paying your rent every now and then.
Their private estates, the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall, make Charles and William £50 million a year. But they have repeatedly refused to reveal exactly which properties they own.
Can we have a report on the list of properties?
I don't see why. I'm not really shocked that they're making money. That's the whole point of them, isn't it?
Morning, and morning, Stephen. Absolutely, I'm not shocked either. And also, as a former butler, I was also a duchy rentee. I used to rent one of the properties, and we were always aware of the property portfolio. I don't think it's kind of a bit news thing. Obviously, part of the, if you like, the business side is these two duchies, Cornwall and Lancaster, and the late Queen obviously was the Duke as well of Lancaster, and now you've got the Prince was obviously, or the King, when he was Prince, had the duchy, and these properties, portfolios as well. I mean, obviously they make money. I mean, but they've been around for, I think they go back to George III, if not before.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's time now for Worldview. The US and Royal Navies are manoeuvring against Russian spy platforms deep beneath the Irish Sea. Let's have a chat with Uri Geller and see what exactly that means. Uri, what's on your mind?
Hi, Nana. OK, this week I have been shocked by the news that in America, a CIA agent has been charged with leaking Israel's plans to attack Iran. His name is Asif Rahman. Look, remember, last month, Israel retaliated against Iran, but we had to delay that attack because someone had leaked the plans in America. Meanwhile, guess what? At the Pentagon, they have just promoted someone who is being investigated over the same leak. Her name is Aryan Tabatabai, and she's suspected of working for Iran. Look, Nana, this is actually unbelievable, and it is shocking. But listen carefully, because I'm going to reveal something exclusively here on GB News. As you know, I know things, and I see things with my psychic powers. Everyone knows that. It is well documented on the wall behind me. But today, I want to reveal to you that I know for certain that right now, there are 50 to 100 foreign spies at work in the heart of American government. The CIA will be shocked about how I know this. And I will probably now get a visit from the men in black. But this has got to get out. So I'm making it public. Nana, I can see it with my powers of remote viewing. Let me turn to this wall. This was my Mossad camera. It's a Mamiya. And this was my CIA camera. It's a small German Minox. So, yes, I worked for Mossad. People know that. It's in thousands of books. And I know what's going on. There are up to 100 spies in the US government, and there are even more sleeper agents all over the country. Why do you think Donald Trump is planning to purge the intelligence agencies as one of the first things he will do? That's why. But let me go even further now, Nana, about your country. Look, Nana, there are also spies at work in the British government. They are working for Russia and Iran and China. I cannot say any more than that, but MI5 knows exactly what I'm talking about. Look, espionage, if you didn't know, is nothing new. It goes back to the time of Bible even, when Moses sent 12 Israelite spies to scout out the land of Canaan. In fact, it is that story which first got me interested in working for Mossad when I was a child, and later on, I actually did. Iran is even trying to recruit Israelis here in Israel. 7 Israelis have been charged with taking money from Iran to assassinate ministers and nuclear scientists right here in Israel. So now I've gone public. I want the UK to flush out these spies. Questions should be raised in the House of Commons because the British public have the right to know.
All right,
I love
Uri
you all.
Geller, thank you so much. Those are Uri's thoughts, of course. I can't verify any of that, but that is, of course, Uri Geller's thoughts. He's a performer, Mr. Fire, global celebrity, as you know. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. The interview is next.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us, and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK. Plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. clear, plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. These likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start, so do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain, but we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels, so do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK, and it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's 5 o'clock. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Coming up, though, the interview. Joining me now, author and political organiser James Schneider, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, as farmers prepare to strike and protests are planned this week over Rachel Reed's inheritance tax raid, I'm asking, do you support them? What do you think? Go on X, let me know your thoughts. Then, what do you want our police to prioritise? Policing thought or policing crime?
Let's get the police to do the one thing that every member of the public wants them to do, get after antisocial behaviour and violence and threats.
And what is Rachel Reed talking about here?
Why it is so worrying that at this crucial time, the Prime Minister and Chancellor concocted a new jobs tax to arrive in the spring. Despite all of their election promises to cut national insurance contributions, they're actually raising them against the strong advice of business and trades unions.
Well, I'll play the full clip for you later. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. It's just gone 5 o'clock. These are your headlines. First, we start with some breaking news. An international manhunt is underway for the husband of a woman who was murdered and found in the boot of a car. 24-year-old Harshita Brella was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police are now searching for Harshita's husband, Pankaj Lamba, but he is thought to have fled the country. A mandatory referral has been made to Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. Pressure is mounting on the government to reconsider its plan to apply inheritance tax to farmers for the first time. The Prime Minister has been accused of sneaking out like a rat rather than facing farmers protesting at the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Thousands of farmers from across the country are descending on London this week in objection to the government's plan to tax assets over £1 million by 20% when farmers die. Earlier, GB News spoke to farmer Charles Godby.
They now, I think, I'm sure, realise that their figures are wrong. We've got the evidence to show that they're wrong, but they're just burying their head in the sand. They don't want to admit it. We're not a farming dynasty. Yet we, through working hard, investing everything we have and taking far below the minimum wage, have managed to build up a sustainable farming business.
The government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures, stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. The Home Office has not confirmed to GB News which new countries they may be speaking with or the specifics of any reported deals. Meanwhile, the Home Office has confirmed that more than 400 illegal migrants crossed the Channel in small boats, as GB News first revealed yesterday. Official figures show that 425 people made the journey in 9 small boats on Saturday before being intercepted by Border Force vessels. More than 33,500 illegal migrants have now crossed since the start of the year. That's already 4,000 more than the total number who crossed during the whole of 2023. Meanwhile, there are reports that Donald Trump's team are looking at plans to deport illegal migrants to Rwanda, following the scheme that was drawn up by the Conservative government. The president-elect is reportedly considering a number of different countries to send illegal immigrants to. A source close to Trump's team has said he campaigned on a promise to crack down on illegal immigration, and he is determined to stick to it. In other news now, hundreds of drones and missiles have been fired into Ukraine as Russia ramps up attacks on infrastructure ahead of the winter. In the biggest attack for several months, Ukraine's foreign minister said energy and water utilities have taken severe damage, with power cuts in several regions, while 7 people were killed. The election of Donald Trump this month has increased the uncertainty around the conflict. with the prospect of a looming push towards negotiations expected. £1 billion in extra funding for bus services has been announced by the government. Areas receiving an unprecedented amount of funding include Peterborough, the Isle of Wight and Torbay, with £712 million for councils and more than £200 million for operators. Bus fares went up by 50% recently, where they are now capped at £3 for a single trip. Earlier, GB News spoke to Transport Secretary Louise Hay.
First time we are committing this funding in a fair, transparent way. The previous government took funding streams and they made areas compete against each other, with particularly rural areas losing out. Today, the funding settlement will give areas like Essex, Kent, Devon and areas across the north like Blackburn and Liverpool record sums of money to put into their bus services, which will increase reliability, improve real-time information and things like accessibility at bus stops and bus stations.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, farmers are gearing up to rally in Westminster this week, protesting against changes to inheritance tax on farms. I'll be joined in the studio by a farmer who will share his thoughts and frustrations about the Chancellor's decision. Then, for the interview, joining me, I'll be joined by two foot and mouth artists whose talents are featured in a groundbreaking photography series. They'll be sharing their story with me. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you think that Donald Trump will end the war in Ukraine? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the conflict with Russia will be concluded next year by diplomatic means. And he believes that Donald Trump's election victory means the war in Ukraine will end sooner than expected. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Well, Sir Keir Starmer was accused of running out of the back door like a rat to avoid angry farmers protesting outside the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Gareth Wyn-Jones said that on my show over the controversial changes to inheritance tax on farms. And farmers are continuing to voice their anger, and many have threatened to go on strike, cutting off Britain's domestic food supply. Well, joining me now is farmer Ollie Harrison. Ollie, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate that. So, OK, Rachel Reeves, they said that they weren't going to tax working people, so obviously inheritance tax is a tax on the dead. So for that, we can
technically,
we can give them credit for not doing that. But it will affect working people, farmers like you. Talk to me about why this is a bad idea.
Yes, so basically, I'll put it in simple terms. 96% of the population doesn't pay inheritance tax, but because farmers have quite a high asset value, which we never see, it's never liquefied, it's just in land, buildings and machinery, that probably 100% of farmers, or at least 98% of them, will get hit with inheritance tax. So if you're a new farmer because you've just lost a parent, the taxman's going to be going, oh, here's a bill, and don't worry, you've got 10 years to pay. But how that money every 10 years is 3 times more than we earn each year. And on that way, and we've got to pay ourselves a wage and eat.
But Rachel said that 1 million actually is initial for a family farm, and then then for a family farm, sorry, it's 3 million. So you've got a leeway of 1 million or 3 million before the inheritance tax kicks in at 20%, so half the rate.
Yeah, so that's only if you're coupled. You're a couple and you die in the right order, and the land is all owned by the right people at the right time. But of course, that never happens, and people don't die in the right order. Even so, the cost of machinery nowadays, even cows, sheep, all that has to be costed in. So you've got what's called APR and you've got what's called BPR. The APR is what the farmhouse and some of the farmland would fall under. But the BPR is all your machinery, all your animals and anything else that might be on the farm, all your growing crops, all your fertiliser and all your inputs. Well, pretty much every farm will be paying BPR on top of the APR.
Right.
So the 3 million is just not, it's just far too low. But that's if you can get the full 3. Most people will only be able to get the 2. And I know 2 million sounds like a lot of money, But these farms have never been on the market. It's never been liquid. You know, mine's the 4th generation. It's just been passed down and passed down and passed down. And I like to just keep passing it down so that my children can farm how I've farmed. But
what could be the motive for this? I know it's supposedly to close a tax loophole, but the devastation will be will have sort of quite far-reaching consequences. And apparently, she's only going to raise 500 million, and you can never work out how much you're actually going to raise because you don't know when people are going to die.
No, that's the ludicrous thing. You know, they're attacking the bottom of the food chain, not the top where the money is, and saying, oh, it's to catch out rich people investing in land. They probably still would, because 20% is still cheaper than a capital gain tax of 24 or whatever else it would be, passed through different ways. But it's going to damage the food industry because these people are buying farmland. It is being used to farm, you know. There is growing food for us to eat. But what will happen now is because farming, there's no profits in it to be able to pay any of these taxes, no matter who owns it. It will be bought by corporations that want a carbon offset or want to plant trees. Well, we can't eat trees.
Do you think, well, we can eat trees, but they have to be growing something...
A bit chewy.
Something that's, yeah. Well, if you're going for the bark, that's not the best bit. But if they're growing something that's edible, then that's useful. But then that's called farming. So why would you get rid of that?
Yeah, you know, and obviously trees, you know, what apples, how many tons of apples would you get per acre compared to wheat? You know, and that's fresh as well, so that has to be stored, whereas growing wheat, we can store it indefinitely. You know, there's lots of things just not been thought out, and I think they just thought, oh, well, they look wealthy to us, so we'll just add a line in and
do you think that's where they've gone with it? It doesn't really make any sense to me, and a lot of people are saying that it doesn't make sense to them. What should Rachel be doing then if she wants to catch these wealthy people who are buying land to try and use the loophole?
Well, either raise the bar from 1 million to, say, 10, or just say, well, hold on a second, if we want to catch these out, let's put more stamp duty on people buying extra, or say if your principal income is not derived from agriculture, you would pay inheritance tax at a different rate.
Well, how much is your farm worth if you were to just add up the land? And...
I've got quite a few mortgages at the moment, and I've bought different land, paid for through diversification, I may add, not through farming. I'm losing money the last few years farming, but different diversifications, whether it's my YouTube channel and stuff like that. But if all the debt was paid off, it'd probably be worth around 10 million.
Wow.
But that is because some of it's urban fringe. It's not.
What does that mean?
You know, one day they might need it for housing, so it has what you'd call hope value, or it's good roadwork connections and stuff.
So in order to meet the requirements, your family would probably need to sell stuff to pay.
Oh yeah, and I've, you know, my dad's not very well at the moment. He's 74. You know, this could hit us straight away, but he now feels like a burden because if he lives past March 26, I'll end up with a tax bill. Equally, when I pass it down, all what I'm doing, all what I'm investing, when you think one day someone's going to want another 20% out of your children for it, it's such a cruel tax.
Is there any way of getting around it with your value of land and everything?
Not really, no. They've kind of looked, they've closed every door. You know, they've really stitched us up, definitely. And it's just criminal because who's going to grow the food? If we all think there's more to life than stressing about the weather and trying to make a living, we'll just sell up and probably go somewhere where farms are appreciated, whether that's New Zealand, Australia, America, whichever.
Lovely place, that, isn't it? Beautiful.
A little bit better weather as well.
I don't know whether... I think they don't have inheritance tax there. I'm trying to think.
No,
I don't know the rules there, but I don't think they do. No, there's a couple of countries there. It seems a bit of a crazy, mad tax. Anyway, I don't agree with inheritance tax. I don't think you should have to do it. And seeing as such a small proportion of people pay it. But for farmers, it will be a large proportion, as you said, nearly 100% of them. Rachel said that wouldn't be 100% though.
That's where she's got her sums wrong, because that's the clever bit with the BPR. They've just looked at APR, which is agricultural property relief.
Right.
But, of course, most farms, a lot of it is working business assets as well.
So you're saying that not only the land, but also the assets will be included in the inheritance tax valuation?
Yeah. So for instance, if you've got a fleet of trucks and you're a haulier that come to over £1 million, you'll be paying tax on 20%. If you've got a hotel that might be generations old, it'll have a high value because it's, you know, they're generally either on a high street in a nice location or a beautiful spot. You know, chop 20% of the rooms off to pay the tax bill. The margins aren't there in other industries, but certainly not in farming. I mean, the latest DEFRA figures are out now. We roughly might get 0.5% return if we have a good year. The DEFRA figures are half that, so 0.2 Would that be 0.25%? And they think that it's acceptable to pay 20%, and even over 10 years, you're still in the red.
Well, in a £10 million farm, what is that? Is that?
It's £2 million quid. But,
so that divided by 10 is how much is that a year?
200,000. And when you're only going to make 40, but that 200,000, to raise 200,000, you've got to sell 30% because you've got to pay capital gains as well on what you've sold. It's just absolutely
spiral,
bonkers. Yeah,
it's just like a rolling spiral of having to pay more and more tax until you've actually got nothing left.
Yeah, and well, that's it. You know, so every 30, 40 years, when the generation changes, you're chopping 25, 30% off a farm. It's very quickly got nothing left, and I feel like they've got the fingers in their ears, going blah blah blah, not listening to us.
Well, I think Keir Starmer was probably scared of the U-turn because he was known as Captain Flip-Flop, but unfortunately,
now's not the time to be stubborn because people have got to eat.
What about, so on Tuesday, will you be coming to central London?
Yeah. So there's 5 farmers that have kind of arranged what we'd call a focal point and a rally at Richmond Terrace, which is, funnily enough, opposite Downing Street on Whitehall, and we're going to be doing a food bank donation just to remind the public that we grow food, we are food producers, you know, not just landowners, shall we say. And then we're going to be marching down Whitehall, round Parliament Square, and the procession's going to be led by children on pedal tractors because, you know, they're the future. That's why we do it.
Well, Ollie, stay with me because we every day we like to run a poll, and this was our poll of the day here on GBNews. And today I asked, should the Prime Minister now meet with farmers at Tuesday's protest? And the final results in Ollie, what do you think they've put there? Give us a guess.
Well, I think that the public will want him there, but I don't think he will. We've asked him.
99% say yes, 1% say no. So there you have it. Listen, Ollie, really good to talk to you. Ollie Harrison, he's got a farm, he's a farmer. We wish you all the best. I hope the government do have a rethink about this one and give their heads a wobble, because this isn't, I don't think this makes sense at all.
No, thank you.
But we wish you all the best with that. I think, as you can see, the public are behind you. Well, if you want to find out all the latest on our polls or vote, you can go to gbnews.com/poll. Next, though, the interview. Joining me, a foot and mouth painter, Tom Yendall, and also Bazza West. Stay tuned.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian state's absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, 20 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and it's now time for the interview. And joining me today are two inspiring artists from the mouth and foot painting artists, Tom Yendall and also Bazza West, whose talents are featured in the groundbreaking photography series Shadows and Substance, the mouth and foot painting artists through the blind photographer's lens. I'm joined in the studio by my artists, Tom Yendall and also Bazza West. Thank you so much for joining me, the pair of you. Wow. So, first of all, I've got some cards that I will show everybody, but talk to me about your stories, because, you know, you're quite inspirational people. I'm going to start with you. Tom, talk to me about your condition and why you decided to work in sort of being an artist.
Well, Nana, I was born with no arms because my mother was prescribed the drug thalidomide back in the 1960s. So I've grown up using my mouth and my feet and my chin to do everything that you do with your hands. Yeah. So I've been painting and drawing. I started drawing and writing with my feet when I was a toddler, and I carried on until I was about 11 when I got too big to sit on the tables at school, and then I swapped to using my mouth. So I'm quite unusual in our association, in the Mouth and Foot Painting Association, in the fact that I paint with both my mouth and my feet. But I've been with the association since 1986, and the association's been going since 1957. And we're a group of artists all around the world that generate our income from painting.
Yeah, well, it's quite impressive, some of the actual pieces that they've painted. And if you're looking on the screen now, you can actually see Tom painting with his feet there, which is pretty impressive that you can do pretty much everything with your feet.
Well, I think our feet are really useful. You know, we're born with this thing called the postnatal grip, and if you give your finger to a baby, they will grip your finger with their toes. But by the time they're like 1 week old, they've got their knitted booties on, and by the year old, they've got Nike trainers on. And we don't really give our feet enough chance to use them. So I think they're you know, it's the monkey in us, really. We can grip things, or we should do more of it.
Well, you've got very good core muscles there to lift your legs up like that and do that.
Oh, I'm a ballet dancer as well.
I thought so. Now what we've got here, if you're watching now, Bazza West. Now, you talk to me about you know, what happened with you and why you're now painting using you're a mouth painter, aren't you?
I am, yes. I was injured back when I was 19. I swerved to miss a badger and hit a tree, so I broke my neck. So I've been injured 28 years. I've got no use of my arms and legs. So that's the reason why now I paint by mouth for the mouth and foot painting artists.
Not very tough to deal with that, especially...
Yeah, it was, yeah. Little did I know that I was going to have to live life with just the use of my head, you know, something you don't think's possible. So, yeah, mouth painting is something that's gave me a direction and a more creative outlook on life, to believe in myself, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and let's have a look at some of the things that have been painted here. So I know you're thinking, oh, what? Look at that. That's actually really impressive. Look at that. No,
that's on silk, so it's mine, yeah.
So who painted that?
That's mine, and it's a silk painting, so it's painted on fabric. So, and it really sparkles. In the light, it really sparkles.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And then, now, this one here, is that...
Yeah, that's one I finished this week. I've been painting in a gallery called Expression Through Freedom. Yeah, so that's where I've been painting this week, yeah.
That's really impressive. And
like, throughout the year, like, we we paint all throughout the year, but this is a really busy time for us where people are getting ready to buy their Christmas cards and Christmas gifts, and so it's really exciting for us when customers start coming in and going to our website for mfpa.uk.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so, of course, all these images are for Christmas cards.
Yeah. So our main income is Christmas and in the spring. Since 1957, we've sent a pack of cards out, and the public very kindly purchase them, and then the money then goes back to the artists each month. We pay our artists around the world. And Barry's this year had his very first Christmas card printed. That's the one. Yeah. Which is fantastic.
This is Barry's first Christmas card being printed.
It's very exciting. I remember my first card that I got printed a long time ago, and from now he'll just go on and on and on, and he'll get bigger and better. And it's
something that I never thought would be possible for me, because to be honest, there's not many jobs out there for people that can just move their head, so I'm very lucky to be involved with the mouth and foot painting artists. So it's amazing when people want to support us and go on our website and buy our Christmas cards, calendars, gift wrap, jigsaw puzzles, and this is a time of year when people will be looking to think, where do I buy my Christmas cards?
Yeah.
So mfpa.uk is where they would want to go and support us and believe in us, and you've heard the story behind us, and support us as artists and focus on our ability and not our
disability.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because a lot of people these days, they're not buying Christmas cards. People like to do the online
totally,
thing.
Yeah,
it is, and it's getting harder. As a company, we're a business. We're very proud of the fact that for nearly 70 years we've put self-help, not charity, on our mailing. And as you say, it's getting more expensive, but you can always take a card round to your next door neighbour. You don't have to put it in the post box, do you? And I think that's a really nice thing to be able to do. A lot of us are losing that connectivity with other people. Yeah. So once a year, handing a Christmas card to someone, a mouth and foot painting Christmas card, would be a really nice thing to do.
And do you work running the charity as well, or do you...
The business.
The business, yeah.
Yeah, so I sit on the international board. So we have 7 artists from around the world that manage the board. And it's an incredible organisation, it's a lot of our artists, earn a good living and have a really good life because of the Mouth and Foot Painting
And is it
Association.
just Christmas cards, or do you guys do...
No, we do spring mailing, and we do birthday cards and, wrapping paper and things like that in the spring as well.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it gives you a sense of purpose, but also a sense of achievement.
Absolutely. It's just like a job. It's like your job.
It's exactly.
We're all working, and a lot of our artists. Barry, is very prolific and paints nearly every day. Creating wonderful images, having the public support at Christmas is really important to us.
Yeah. How many people are part of the organisation?
Well, we've got 720 artists around the world, and I think there's about 34 now in the UK. And they're all beavering away. We're a bit like the fashion industry. We do our Christmas cards in the summer, and they get chosen and get printed in the winter for Christmas.
Wow, it's very impressive, and the cards are fabulous. And I think this one here in particular, this one which is actually printed on silk. Have a look at that again, guys.
Yeah,
that is actually pretty good, isn't it? What are you going to do with that one? Is that something?
It's been printed as a card. Yeah.
And what about? Can we have any? We need to contribute though to have one. I think.
They have a card.
You sell any of these? I like this.
Yeah.
If people like our cards and they want to go onto our website, it's mfpa.uk. If they want to read a few more of our stories from our other artists throughout the UK and the world, it's mfpa.uk.
And we're on social media, Mouth and Foot Painting Artists UK. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's really good to talk to you both, and you just keep up the good work, because I think, for this year I'm feeling quite Christmassy. Are you feeling quite Christmassy this year?
Absolutely, I'm always Christmassy.
Yeah, but this year I think, I don't know, it has a special sort of... It's a bit more Christmassy, probably because I have a boyfriend now, so I'm going to get...
Yes. Come on.
Excellent.
That's about time.
I think that might be a hint.
Yeah, that's it.
If you're watching, it's definitely a hint.
You know what you got to do.
So the other Christmases I've had nothing. It's been a bit of a 7-year drought. Well, listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing these in. We'll encourage our viewers to, get involved if they can.
Thank you.
If people are watching and you want to buy some Christmas cards this year, and I think sometimes we're going a bit digital on stuff.
Totally.
You can check out the website.
No more emails, Christmas cards, definitely.
So it's
mfpa.uk. Go and get your Christmas cards.
Yeah,
support us.
Support these brilliant.
Come on.
Brilliant people. All right, thank you so much. That's Tom Yendall and also Bazza West.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, this is GB News. If you just tuned in, it's just gone 5:30. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, the Great British Debate. I'm asking, do you think that Donald Trump will end the war in Ukraine? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Danny Kelly and James Schneider. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
These are your headlines from the GB newsroom at 5:30. The Prime Minister has hinted that the UK will start paying countries to do more to stop migrants entering the UK illegally. It comes amid reports the government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. When asked directly about paying countries to stop migrants leaving their countries and heading to the UK, Sir Keir Starmer said bearing down on the gangs is really important. Anything else we can do to stop people leaving in the first place is the right thing. An international manhunt is underway for the husband of a woman who was murdered and found in the boot of a car. 24-year-old Harshita Brella was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police are now searching for Harshita's husband, Pankaj Lamba, but he is thought to have fled the country. A mandatory referral has been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. In other news, now pressure is mounting on the government to reconsider its plan to apply inheritance tax to farmers for the first time. The Prime Minister has been accused of sneaking out like a rat rather than facing farmers protesting at the Welsh Labour conference yesterday. Thousands of farmers from across the country are descending on London this week in objection to the government's plan to tax assets when farmers die. £1 billion in extra funding for bus services has been announced by the government. Areas receiving an unprecedented amount of funding include Peterborough, the Isle of Wight and Torbay, with £712 million for councils and more than £200 million for operators. And finally, tickets for next year's Glastonbury have sold out in less than 40 minutes. Organisers of the Somerset Music Festival apologised to anyone who didn't get a ticket, stating that demand was much higher than supply. Selling at £373.50 plus a £5 booking fee, this year's lineup is rumoured to include northern rock and roller Sam Fender, punk legends Green Day and pop star Olivia Rodrigo. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So some wintry showers continuing across parts of Scotland with some cloud and rain on the way for much of England and Wales as we go over the next couple of days and into the start of the new working week. That's all thanks to this area of low pressure up in the northwest of the UK, slowly pushing its way south and eastwards as we go into the start of Monday and Tuesday. For the rest of today, though, a bit of a mixed picture, plenty of scattered showers around, but some clear skies developing across northern parts of England, much of Scotland, and under those clear skies likely to turn quite chilly, particularly during the early hours of Monday morning. So quite a harsh frost to start the day on Monday here. Perhaps some icy stretches during Monday morning's rush hour. So do take care during the morning rush hour. Further south, a little bit of a milder start due to all that cloud, and outbreaks of showery rain will continue to spread their way south and eastwards as we go through much of Monday morning. These perhaps turning a little heavy across southwestern parts of England, particularly over any high ground. But for central parts of England, North Wales, northern parts of England and Northern Ireland too, a bit of a brighter start to the day, albeit quite a chilly start with those temperatures dropping below zero. Particularly across parts of Scotland, we could see -2 or -3 in some rural spots, and snow showers continuing across the far north of Scotland, perhaps building up to around 10 centimetres of snow over any high ground here. Further south, that area of rain pushes offshore down towards the south coast, and this is the next area of rain that arrives across Northern Ireland. Could turn particularly heavy across Northern Ireland, and we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as well. But further east, there'll be some sunshine, perhaps turning a little hazy through the afternoon, and feeling quite chilly with northerly winds here, temperatures struggling to reach much above 3 or 4 degrees, but just holding on to that slightly milder air in the southwest as we go through the afternoon. That area of rain across Northern Ireland pushes its way eastwards into northern parts of England, and we could see some quite disruptive sleet and snow, particularly over any high ground through northern England on Monday afternoon. It will be staying quite bright with some sunny spells through much of next week, but it will be feeling really quite chilly with those temperatures well below average for the time of year.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
36 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you think that Donald Trump will end the war in Ukraine? Volodymyr Zelensky has said in an interview that Donald Trump's election victory means that the war in Ukraine will end soon, calling for a diplomatic solution. The Ukrainian president also disclosed that he had a constructive exchange with Trump after his recent election victory. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you think that Donald Trump will end the war in Ukraine? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also author and political organiser James Schneider. James Schneider, Trump's win, is that a good thing in your view?
I don't think, I mean, look, we'll see. I think it could potentially be good in Ukraine. I think it's probably bad for many other places in the world, but at least he's talking about peace, and there seems to be movement on both sides in the direction of bringing an end to this terrible war that's killed a lot of people and also caused huge global economic problems. I mean, the food prices have gone up. There's grain that hasn't gone to lots of countries. Of course, it's ruined the energy security for Europe. So I do hope that Trump, I mean, he did speak about it very plainly in the election. He said he wanted to push for peace. That was a big difference between him and Biden and then Harris.
Yeah. All right, Danny Kelly.
When Trump boasted he's going to stop it in a day, now we know how. He's just going to stop supplying weaponry. And I feel so sorry for Zelensky.
Well, no, hold on. He didn't say that. You don't know that.
Well, there's been a tweet from his camp to say that Zelensky, and I'm paraphrasing, is on borrowed time with weaponry. That's what he's... there was a tweet a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
said by maybe even Elon Musk or...
No, it was just it's Trump
Yeah, that's
Jr.
it. Yeah, Donald Trump Jr. saying basically enjoy the next 38 days, implying that at day 39...
I think basically the account is closed or sort of...
You've got it.
As
far as weaponry is concerned, I feel so desperately sorry for Ukraine.
But that doesn't mean that he's going to do that. That's Trump Jr. That's not Donald Trump.
Yeah, but Donald Trump Jr. wouldn't tweet something unless Donald...
You don't know that.
But
you can't attribute somebody else's tweet to something that somebody else is going to do.
I think if a Trump tweets something like that, I think they get
all I'm saying,
big Donald.
All I'm saying is Donald Trump hasn't said that. That's my point I'm making.
Yeah, and my point is that he probably knew about it when it was tweeted.
No.
That's my point.
Okay.
Anyway,
but
none of us know.
Just clarifying that Donald Trump didn't say that.
No, that's correct. None of us know. But Zelensky is in a conciliatory mood all of a sudden, which would maybe support my theory. I don't know, but we'll find out. I feel so desperately sorry. 500,000 men have lost their lives, soldiers on the front line, mostly Russian lads, have been forced to fight on this false red flag that they were going into Ukraine to get rid of Nazis. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember
Everyone's
that.
forgotten about that.
No, it was crazy.
To expel Nazis. You know, it's just a complete lie. And unfortunately, I think that Putin is going to get a strip of land. And I hope that Donald Trump and the European leaders patrol the land, the United Nations, to give Ukraine some confidence that he's not going to push westwards. I would settle for that because I'm sick and tired of so many people...
Well, you talked about so many people being killed, so the fact that the war would stop would be, I think, ultimately a good thing. But I think, the US and the UK, we do owe Ukraine because of the Budapest Memorandum, where we said that we'd protect them if they dropped their arms and got rid of their nuclear weapons, which they did. And now, of course, there's a war, so we can't just simply abandon them in the way and just stop supplying weapons when we have committed to that many years ago.
Well, we can still supply the weapons, but if my theory is correct and...
But Russia also signed this agreement and...
I think we just have to sometimes just forget about previous agreements and just say, look, we are where we are.
No. That's the whole reason why they don't have nuclear weapons. But Russia also signed that agreement and they're the aggressor,
So Trump is an amoral deal maker. And actually in this...
What do you mean by that?
So he's not trying to weigh up the moral rights or wrongs of it. He's definitely through his proxies and possibly directly in conversation with Zelensky said...
Preparing the ground.
Yeah, we're not going to give you arms. He's also, through proxies, said to Putin, or made it known, we could actually give them more stuff if you don't come to the table. He's trying to strike some kind of a deal, the contours of which Danny was just saying, possibly freezing the conflict on the line and having a demilitarised zone. Is that the most moral outcome? No, it's not the most moral outcome, but... if it does end the conflict, that would ultimately be better for basically everybody involved. Now, does that make Putin's invasion any less wrong? No, of course it does not. But the question that all wars, generally speaking, either they end with total obliteration of one side or the other, or there's a negotiated end. And the sooner you can get to the negotiated end, generally speaking, the better.
I think Trump, to be fair to my position earlier, I'm sure Donald Trump, and again I'm paraphrasing lazily, along the lines of, we're sick and tired of funding a war which has got nothing to do with us. Now that's a lazy paraphrase, but that just tells you the spirit of I think, what he's trying to do, his MO on this one. And also Zelensky, why would Zelensky be so conciliatory all of a sudden?
No, he hasn't been for 2.5 years.
Well, they all are, though. I mean, even all the people who are coming around, all the world leaders seem to be...
Since the Trump election.
Since Trump's been elected, are saying things...
Yeah, and all of a sudden... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's not just him. That's what you said. You're losing... Zelensky about losing your allowance, is what he said.
That's it.
He's losing his allowance. So, but I actually think this is, ultimately I want the war to stop. I want it to end. And we are not really giving Ukraine what they really need to stop the war. So ultimately it just needs to stop. Otherwise, the people of Ukraine will be annihilated if this carries on. That's what I see.
We've just got to pinch our nose and do a deal with the devil. That's my opinion. 500,000 people have lost their lives.
Yeah,
how many the meat grinder people call it, how many more people must lose their lives?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and it's Ukrainian troops who are conscripted into the army don't have a choice of being killed by the Russian war machine, and also the Russian soldiers, as you're saying, are almost all conscripts themselves.
It's just desperate stuff.
So it's a bleak and horrible war, and
do you think, James, do you trust Putin not to expand westwards?
I think trust would be weird. I mean, he's got some pretty weird ideas based in what happened in the 9th and 10th century about where he thinks the borders of Russia should be. But he will also respond to force. I think if they do end up with some kind of demilitarised zone in the same way, I mean, that's what they're talking about in the same way that they have on the Korean Peninsula, then that can...
And Cyprus.
Have you looked at the map of the size of Russia? The fact that he'd even be wanting to add more to it, it's just massive. So I find it shocking. But listen, lots of you have been in touch with your thoughts on all the topics we've been discussing throughout the show. Wendy is talking about non-crime hate incidents. And she says, has a non-crime hate incident been reported against anyone on the thuggish left or for any anti-Semitic comments? I said, I don't know, Wendy. Maybe they have. But remember, with the non-crime hate incident, you don't even know who has done it, who's reported you. That's how that one goes. Humpty says, if I was a country that needed a bit of money, I'd have a chat with Keir to advise him that I will try and help with illegal immigration as long as I'm paid a certain amount to my bank. It's like a state-funded scam. I don't know. I mean, look, to me, it feels more like foreign aid. The same thing that a lot of people want us to bring down. It sounds to me like that supplying money to different countries to kind of keep them so they don't come to this country in a way just sounds like foreign aid. I think they're just fancifying it to make it sound different. Another one here from Humpty saying the police will be reading newspapers next and paying a visit to anyone who's published a view which someone may disagree with. Ludicrous. Then Lucia on I'm a Celebrity said I did watch I'm a Celebrity because Nigel Farage was in it because it was a great watch. I did ask if anyone is planning to watch it today. And this one from Diane again, she says, Nana, I will be watching I'm a Celebrity. Nah, get me out of here. Never have, never will, not even when Nigel did it. So there you go. Keep your thoughts coming. gbnews.com/your say. On the way next, Supplement Sunday. My panel and I will go through some of the other stories that caught their eye this week.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past.
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 49 minutes after 5 o'clock. Now, listen, I've been teasing this all show. This is Rachel Reeves. This is the full clip of Rachel Reeves, what she said about national insurance increases back in 2021. Have a listen.
Why it is so worrying that at this crucial time, the Prime Minister and Chancellor concocted a new jobs tax to arrive in the spring. Despite all of their election promises to cut national insurance contributions, they're actually raising them against the strong advice of business and trades unions. The Conservative government's actions will make each new recruit more expensive and increase the costs to business. The decision to saddle employers and workers with the jobs tax takes money out of people's pockets when our economic recovery is not yet established or secure, and only adds to the pressure on businesses after a testing year and a half. When all other costs are going up, the costs of energy, the costs of supplies, these tax rises are only hitting them harder.
So, what has changed? How come it seems Rachel Reeves has changed her mind? James Schneider. It's kind of the opposite.
I think that's the definition of hoist by your own petard. I mean, Rachel Reeves of 2024 clearly furiously disagrees with Rachel Reeves of 2021. It looks very, very silly.
It stinks. It looks awful. You know, it absolutely stinks. And for employers around the country who are going to have to cut back on staff costs, and employees who are going to be denied a reasonable pay rise next year because the employer is going to correctly say, look, the threshold has dropped, the price has gone up, the interest rate has gone up for the national insurance, you can't have your pay rise. Just stinks. It makes people sick to the stomach.
Well, also, it's a kind of anti-growth, isn't it? But she's pointing all of that out herself.
Yeah.
So it seems pretty strange. I think that clip will probably haunt her, but I just wanted to play it for you so that you could hear what she said 3 years ago about raising national insurance and who she said it would hit, which sounded very much like, to me, working people.
Yep.
Well, joining me now, Danny Kelly and James Schneider. Let's discuss Supplement Sunday. It's time for Supplement Sunday, the part of the show where we test the panel on some of the other stories. And what have you got, Danny Kelly?
This is a great story. The headline, great tabloid headline. 130 hamsters were on an aircraft going to a pet shop somewhere on one side of Portugal. They escaped their cages and now they are working their way, rodent damage, gnawing through on a plane.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not.
This is on a plane?
It's grounded because they can't find all the hamsters. I'm a car dealer away from broadcasting. Yeah. I have got a BMW 1 Series at my local BMW dealer. It's going to cost me 4 figures because of rodent damage. Mice. Do not underestimate the damage that mice can do to electrics. And it's all right in a car. If all of a sudden your indicators stop working, you just put your hazards on them. In a plane, 30,000 feet above the ocean,
have to find
that thing's going to stay on the ground until every damn rodent has been caught.
Wow, that's sort of funny, but it's not so funny. They need to find...
It's funny, though. If it ditched in the Mediterranean, it's not funny. At the moment, it's funny.
At the moment, yeah, it's grounded. It ain't going anywhere.
It ain't going anywhere.
James Schneider.
I was rather struck by this piece from Al Jazeera, which maps Israel's attacks on Lebanon's healthcare system, and it slightly relates back to the Trump story we're talking about, because I'd like to see him also pushing for peace in West Asia, which he currently isn't, because like with Ukraine, the US basically funds the Israeli military and therefore has a huge amount of leverage, which the US never seems to use. Joe Biden put red line after red line, which were all ignored by Netanyahu. And I would like to see some of the sort of more tough treatment that Trump is trying to do to Zelensky and to Putin, also to that conflict.
That's interesting.
Well, listen, thank you very much. That's very interesting indeed. And right, well, let's have a look. See, we've got a couple of views left. Let's have a look, because a lot of you have been saying stuff, and let's see what you've been saying. So throughout the show, we've been talking about a lot of things. This one from Catherine, who heard the interview with Tom and Bazza. She says, MFPA, got it. Yeah, that's where you can get those Christmas cards to support the organisation. Catherine said, Tom and Bazza, so positive and inspiring. Beautiful artwork, fantastic guys. And she's got a round of applause there. And then Lucia says, our cowardly ducking and diving Prime Minister Starmer will not be meeting the farmers next week as he will be jollying in Brazil instead. Well, you know, he's obviously doing what he has to do as Prime Minister, but I can see why you think that. All right, well, listen, stay with me because throughout the show, I've been asking, do you support our farmers going on protest? And the final result, according to our poll, 91% of you said yes and 9% of you said no. Wow, well, I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel, political commentator James Schneider, and also journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly. And as ever, a huge thank you to you for your company, for joining me today. I am back, same time, same place, next week, Saturday at 3. Also for Britain's Newsroom on Friday. Take care, have a fabulous week. I'll leave you with the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to a latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK, plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. Plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland, these likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start. So do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain. But we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels. So do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK. And it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets